All right, let's dive into our wonderful world of blueprints a little bit more. Um, let's take a look at creating a different type of blueprint. So this was our level blueprint, which, as we mentioned before, it's always running and it's connected to just this level here. So let's go over here and let's just grab a cube. And what I'm going to do is sort of make this into a door. And this is essentially, if you look at the naming of this cube that we created here, um, it is called a actor. And if you look over to the right here, let me hit F to focus on this. It's a static mesh actor, and this is the sort of the smallest or introductory object. And what's nice about it is that all of these parameters are already attached, and we can edit it and all that other good stuff. Now, what I'd like to do is maybe make it where, like, if I walk up to this door, it changes color or something. Okay. So I have a folder in my content area, and it's called Blueprints. And what I'd like to do is just sort of make a blueprint out of this actor here. So with it selected, there's a couple ways to do this. You can essentially, well, the fastest or easiest way to do it is just hit this Blueprint Add Script button. You can also right-click in here, and you can create a blueprint class. We'll do that with other objects later, but for now, I'm just going to select the static mesh actor and just hit Blueprint Add Script. And I'm going to select blueprints here. And for now, I'm just going to change the word door. All right, and I'm going to hit create. And now you'll see, let me close this for a second. The door blueprint appears here. You can edit the door blueprint by clicking this one, or you can just double click it in your options here. Now, if it opens up where you see this and you're like, whoa, what happened? I want to get into my blueprint. You just hit open full blueprint editor. For now, let's delete these because I'm not going to go into those just yet. Now, you might notice there's 3 tabs here, construction script, an event graph, and a viewport. I'm going to hit this little box here to close the construction script because we're not going to use that yet. Now, inside of our door blueprint here, you can see we have our static mesh component. And what you'll notice is with this component, this is actually the reference to that door. So if I select this in here, and I'm like, you know what, I want to add a point light. Notice over here, when I go off to the side here, and I hit compile, the point light appears here, and it's in our environment. So if I grab that point light and I move it up, now it'll update here. And I can also edit the attributes of that point light, both on the side here, where I can increase the intensity, and you'll see it increases in the scene. Or I can go off to the side here, and with that point light selected, I can adjust the intensity here. See that? And it's going to update essentially on both. It takes less time to sort of create that connection though outside of the scene in here. So you almost have to close this out and then reopen it if you're going to edit it. So with that said, let's go ahead and just sort of bring this down a little bit and, I don't know, change the color of the light. And, I don't know, just go ahead and hit OK here. Now, what I'd like to do is a couple things. Notice, let me go ahead and compile and save this, that I'd like to go into here, and when I walk up to the door, it turns red, like I bump into it. It turns red, meaning the door does not open. So for that, I'm going to need a material. So let's just make a new folder here and call it door. And I'm going to drag my door blueprint inside of here. I'll just hit move here. And ordinarily, you'd have a textures folder that's separate, but for now, I'm just going to, or a materials folder, just make a default material called door locked. Okay. And now what I can do is, this has a default material attached, which is this basic shapes. So I'm going to double click mDoor locked, and I'm going to expand this for a second. Now what I'd like to do is, just for now, create a basic color. So I'm going to right click and just type the word vector, or maybe constant. And you can see there's a constant vector 2, vector 3. If I select constant vector 3, you can see there's an RGB or 3 different values. And I can just plug this into base color and just change the color to red, right? And then I'm going to hit OK. And it usually takes a second to apply or update here. But if I want to play with some of these other values to make it look a little more realistic, I can use something like a scalar. And I'm going to actually, in later videos, I'll show you how to script a scalar. So let's call this metal. And I'm just going to drop this into the metallic property. And what's cool about this is notice that this has a default value. So if I crank this up, look what happens when you go higher for the default value. It becomes more metallic looking. You see that? It's got a little bit more of an increased specularity. If I bring this value down to, I don't know, close to 0, you can see it's dull and it's flat and there's not much metallicness going on. Now I'm going to hit Control C and then just hit Control V, and notice it pastes right where my cursor is. And I'm just going to call this one rough, and I'm going to point this into our roughness channel. Now notice what happens here with a value at 0. It makes it almost like it's a mirror, and that's what roughness does. It's the highest contrast of specularity where it becomes almost mirror-like. Now if I crank this up, let's say 1, you'll notice that my specularity has gone down to almost flat. So let's go with something like a 0.5 just for the heck of it. And that looks kind of cool. I mean, it's sort of metalish. We could definitely use some normals and all the other stuff, but for now, I think that's good enough. So I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to notice this name is mDoor locked. That's going to be important for later inside of here. So let's delete these out. Now notice the event graph looks just like the graph in our world blueprint. And that's because what's happening here is this blueprint can affect other objects in the scene, and you're going to see that in a second. But it's specific for this particular object. So let's take a look at one event. Now, events are ways of triggering certain things to happen or events in our scene. So I'm going to right-click in here, and I'm just going to type in, I don't know, hit. Or let's type event so it knows we refer to event, and then I'm going to do hit. Notice there's a collision event called event hit, which means that this object right here, this door, has a collision parameter on it, which is here. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we turn on simulate generate hit events, and we want to turn on generate overlap events. And what that means is when something bumps into this, maybe we'll do a couple things. We'll do a sphere, and we'll place that up here. And then we'll have our character. Oh, looks like I already have a sphere up here. So we'll have this sphere, which is up here. And I'm going to have it bump into this. So let's say that, I don't know, let's turn on simulate physics, and let's make sure gravity is on. And so when I press play, notice it falls and it hits the top of that sphere. So what we can do is if this hits it, it'll turn red. So let's get back in here and edit this. So all I'm going to do is say, look, this object, this event hit, which is attached to this door, if we want to access the material, right? So let's type in set material. Now you'll notice there's a couple set material options, name, static, whatever. I can set a material by just clicking this, and you'll notice it's going to target itself, but it's not really sure which one. Are you going to set a material to the point light or whatever? So it's going to get a little confusing. So I can actually well, let's just do it this way. There's two ways of signifying what I want to set a material to. Now this mesh, this door is actually called static mesh component inherited, and that's just the name of the box when I created it. So if I hold the control key, I can actually grab this and I can get a reference to my static mesh component, and I can plug it into target here. And what this is if something hits this, I'm going to take my door and I'm going to change the material to m underscore door. Let's see if that pops up, locked. All right, let's hit compile and save here. Now let's go in here, and I'm just going to press play again. And boom, notice once it hits it, it turned the door red. All right, let's go ahead and just kind of move this off to the side for a second. Press play. Boom, notice it didn't hit it. But if I walk up with this guy, oh, it turned red too. That's cool and everything, but I kind of want it where I don't want other objects like NPCs or AIs or whatever bumping into this door and turning the light on. I only want it for my player as a game design mechanic. All right, so, well, how the heck do I do that? Well, let's take a look at that. So I'm going to select my door here, and I'm going to go to Edit Door Blueprint. And notice there is this option here called Other. And what that refers to is the other object you want to refer to or affect when you hit the door. So I'm going to drag this out. Now there's something called casting. So if I type in third person, let's see if I can do this again, third Oh, I'm sorry, not other comp, other, here we go. Third, and that's going to get anything, any other object that I want. Notice that it says cast to third person character. Now, how do I know what my third person character, like casting to what? How do I even know that? Well, if we look back at our scene here, look at the name of our character here. It's named third person character. So easy enough, all we did is we said, hey, I want to cast to, or I want to grab that third person character from my scene. And when I hit this, I want to change the material on this door, but I only want the other object to be this. Now we could create a whole chain of these off of different objects, which we could do at another time. So like for example, if there's multiple players or something. So let's go ahead and press play and let's see what happens. Notice the ball hit it, nothing happened. Now when I walk up to the door, it changes color. So that's a pretty good introduction to just looking at how to access this door blueprint.